Hello and welcome to Connected, episode 228. It is made possible this week by our sponsors, Luna Display, Drafts, and Squarespace. I'm your host, Stephen Hackett, and I am joined by Mr. Federico Viticci.
Hello, Stephen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm running a bit of a fever, but I'm fine. First time I do a feverish podcast, I think. Actually, not the first time. Back in the prompt days, I did an episode when I had a really high fever. But today I'm actually doing pretty okay compared to that time. So yeah, I will manage. If I disappear at some point, it's because I died. No, I'm kidding. I'll be okay.
I'm going to drop a clip of that show in right here.
No. God. I'm all sweaty and sore, and so I just I drank some milk.
And Mike Hurley's here as well.
Every episode is like a fever dream to me. And here I am. It's good. It's good. Fever dreams are wild.
So we're back. There's a lot to talk about. Sometimes January is slow, and that is not the case this year.
This week has been a month.
It feels
it's been a real big one. Yeah.
Really feels that way. But before we get to all that, we have some follow-up. And my only question, really, is, Mike, are you still using your iPad screen protector?
Yes.
Oh my God, why? No.
Basically, my opinion has remained mostly unchanged from last week. It's like, it does feel nice to use. I do still can very much see that it's on there, but the Apple Pencil does feel nicer on it. So I feel like my opinion remains exactly the same, so it's not come off yet, because I haven't had any realizations in either direction, so it might be sticking around. I don't know. It might be sticking around.
Would you consider an artist, Mike, yourself at this point, given that you're using paper and okay?
I'm using paper and fountain pens right now.
Okay.
So
Okay.
fancy, very fancy.
We'll continue to check in over the next few weeks. I really don't think you will come to WWDC with the Paperlike on your iPad,
well, you won't see it because I won't bring that one.
Well, that's cheating then.
But to be honest, although if I keep it on the 12.9 until June, I probably would have got it for my 11 by then. Right.
As the official adjudicator of this controversy, I should be able to check whether you have the Paperlike installed or not.
Well, you'll probably come to my home anyway, so even if I don't have it on the 11, but I say I'm keeping it on the 12, then you'll be able to see it. You can verify it.
Okay, we'll live stream the results.
Please do.
This is definitely something nobody will remember.
Oh, boy. We've been speaking about rumors of new iPads, and everyone's friend, Steve Trout-Smith, has found evidence in iOS 12.2 of 4 new iPads, 2 Wi-Fi and 2 cellular. They don't seem to have Face ID. And there's also evidence of an iPod Touch with no Touch ID and no Face ID. So I don't know what's going on with the iPod Touch. But these things, I think I'm a believer. I think we're going to see new iPads and iPod Touches here pretty soon.
The iPod Touch bothers me.
Why? Don't rain on this
It just
parade.
seems weird. It just seems so weird. Like, unless it looks like a iPhone 10, then I just don't understand why they're doing it now, right? Like, it just seems so strange to me.
It's like a notch, but with no Face ID. That'd be exciting.
But like, well, yeah, that's a good point. But like, if you use it, then great. Like, more power to you, and I'm sure this is going to be great for you. And I even kind of feel this way with the iPad Mini to a part as well. But I just don't understand why you would leave a product around for so long unchanged and then change it a little bit, right? Because let's be real, like, that iPod Touch is most likely just going to get a processor update or whatever, and then it's kind of just like, I don't understand why this product still exists. Like, how many are you really selling? It just seems really strange to me. I don't know. I don't get it.
So what you're saying is you're not going to pre-order an iPod Touch?
It is unlikely. I would consider that to be quite unlikely.
If you did, would you put a screen protector on it?
No.
Okay.
I'm
We'll
not
see.
into screen protectors for screen protectors' sake. You know,
Sure.
there isn't one going on my iPhone. It's all to do with the Apple Pencil. That's what it's all to do with.
What if this iPod Touch upgrade is just like one of those things that Apple does? It's like a price change and some minor component change, and maybe it's like $20 more expensive. Like, it's not a new iPod Touch, it's just a
No.
minor spec bump.
But that's my point, though. Like, I just don't get why you would leave it for so long and then do so little. Right? When was the last update on the iPod Touch?
It was a couple of years ago when I bought it last summer, you remember? And then I forgot that I had one.
It was July of 2015, and
Okay, so
Right.
more
it
than a couple
was
of years ago.
it was upgraded then to include the Apple A8 processor.
the
so,
same
like,
that's in the HomePod.
This is my question, where it's just like if you leave it for 4 years untouched, I just it's. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it just seems strange because then
I mean,
they're going to
it went
release
3 years
like,
before that. I mean, the Touch
Oh,
is on
God.
a slow refresh cycle at this point.
All right, so what if it's a 10R without the phone part, without, maybe slightly worse cameras, and Apple keeps saying this is a game console?
I mean, I think so. That's what I'm saying. Like, I would have no problem. I don't have a big problem. Like, it's just I'm just wondering about it, right? But like, if they made some visual design change, like actually changed the hardware, like it is a new product, I would be like, okay, fine, right? Like, but there's something about like if all they do is they just open it up, they put a chip in, they close it up again, and keep selling the exact same product. It just seems weird to me. Where it's like, why would you leave? Why, if it's important enough for you to change it at all, why do you leave it 4 years between revisions?
Maybe part of it is price, that if they say they put an A9 in this thing, or maybe even an A10, the prices come down on those chips at this point where they can do that and still sell this thing for, whatever it is, $249.
Right. But like, I just wonder how much how many they're selling. It's so funny to me. The iPod Touch webpage on Apple.com, it's like a time machine.
Bad. Yeah. Well, it's if you go to apple.com/shop, blah blah blah, buy iPod Touch, it is the old store design.
Oh my god,
Yep.
that's incredible.
That'll be in the show notes.
What? How?
Also,
How
it's-
is that?
Yeah. Also,
a thing?
I want to correct myself. It starts at $199 for the 32 gig. So it is. I mean, it's cheap. And so my thought on this is that if they do this, they've got to keep it at this low price point. That necessitates some things like no Face ID, and according to what Steve has found, no Touch ID either. It doesn't have Touch ID now; it's just a regular old home button. So maybe all they do is, like you said, crack it open and just put another CPU in it, which I think is all it takes. Really, you just slip it in the air gap and shut it real quick so it can't get out.
Yeah, before you get any dust in there.
Yeah. Do it quick.
Sure. If they're gonna do it, then do it. It just I wonder about the decisions that get made that lead to something like this, and it just seems really strange to me. Like, I do wonder as well. Like, is again, for most people, like a large audience of people, do you need both the iPod Touch and the iPad Mini? Like, is there not close enough overlap between those two products at this point?
Yes, there is some. I just figured that the iPod Touch is for toddlers and the iPad Mini is for kids age 6 and up. Something like that.
Parenting with Federico.
It's
That's how it works, right?
Like, no, I'm sure that like this is something that people do, but like that can't be why these products exist, though, right?
Maybe then it's just, I don't know. Why do you think they exist?
So it currently fills a line on a spreadsheet. Like, let's
Well, there
look
you
at
go.
our
That's a
pricing options across
Good
the.
enough explanation to me.
But like,
It's not an ideal situation, but
no.
It's also the only iOS device that ships with a headphone jack, so it has that going for it. If you're
I don't think
into
that's
that.
a priority. I don't think that's
It is for some websites.
Right, so then it's like that. Then like that's when I start to think like this is strange, right? That like Apple would ship a new product that has both a headphone jack and a home button, and it's just like it seems really weird, right?
It is weird, but I mean, if the price point's important to them, then they've got to do this sort of thing. I do wonder. We're not going to really talk about it, I don't think. Y'all did a really good section on this on Upgrade this week. I'll point people there. Like this rumor that Apple's going to do a game streaming service of some sort. Like, who knows? But maybe this is the way into that. Maybe they really rebuild this thing.
It's not going to be powerful enough for most of the good games that they would want to be talking about.
Probably not if it's $199, but if it's $299 and you could put A11 in it, maybe it is.
Right, but then who's buying? But then at that price with those specs, there's probably a better product closer, which is then an iPad, right, of some description, which would be better for games anyway.
Maybe the iPod Touch is just the new expensive Siri remote.
It works better than the Siri remote.
Well, if 12.2, I guess it will work, and it's got about as many useful buttons on it as the Siri remote does. Bigger touchscreen area. Yes. Yeah, let's go for it. So we'll all just buy them for. It's like how we all buy Mac Minis for home servers.
That's right.
We'll all buy iPod Touches for Apple TV remotes.
That's right. I have some real time follow up that the 9.7-inch iPad and the iPad Mini you can still buy still comes with a headphone jack. So I'm sorry.
Right, but it's new products, right?
New products, yeah.
Because when the 9.7-inch was released, you could still buy iPhones with headphone jacks on them.
Yeah. Who knows?
New.
I just find it interesting because this is a product that clearly the three of us at least are struggling with to kind of put in the world. And so I think Apple, like, they could just update it and whatever, do it with a press release. But if they tell a story around it, I'll be really interested to see what that is. I want to know what Apple thinks, who Apple thinks this device is for. That's an interesting question to me.
I straight up don't think you're going to get an answer out of them. Right? Like,
you don't think they're going to like seed it to cool YouTubers and they're like, that's probably not going to happen, is it?
No, I don't think it would. Right? Like, I honestly, I feel like it will probably they'll just make some slight revisions to this very, very out of date page, and then just like that's it. Unless they do some kind of big visual design, which, as much as I would want them to do if they're going to make a new product like this, I doubt is going to happen.
So, moving on, I have the year of Steven has suffered a blow.
It was never a year of Steven.
You had like the half of an episode of Steven. That was all you got. And then here we're back here again because your good friend, Joni with an H, Joni Srouji, is reportedly staying at Apple now. And he's not in the running for the Intel CEO position. Poor Joni. I hope that got him like a pay rise, like the rumor of him leaving, Timmy brought him in and gave him a pay bump. And he's like, aha, I wasn't going to do anything in the first place. And it's all down to you, Steven. You did this.
Schemy Johnny.
He's upset with our coverage of this, and he heard the episode and said, screw that guy, I'm staying.
Or you can believe that.
He really doesn't want you to win the predictions.
Avid connected listener Johnny Srouji didn't want Steven to win. His hobby, besides making chips, is participating in Connected's...
he dislikes you so much, he doesn't even want you to get the ungraded points.
I was going to say, joke's on him, it's not even graded, so...
It's just...
You kept your job for no reason, sir.
Rights. Nothing. He doesn't want you to have a thing.
Federico, you spoke last time about reading, and you asked the audience for suggestions. And like I saw, like the email account and Twitter account, lots of suggestions. So, what is going on in the Teachy Book Club?
Okay, so first of all, thank you everyone who sent and is still sending book suggestions on Twitter. I'm saving the most interesting ones. The recommendations so far have been really, really great, but something happened with one specific recommendation that triggered something in me that I hadn't felt in several years. So I'm going to give you the summary of what happened first, then I want to share some details. I started reading a book last week, and I'm now at iBooks or Books. The app says that I'm 70% into this book. So I think I'm going to finish it between tonight or tomorrow. So the book is called Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This recommendation came from listener and MacStories reader, he says, Andras, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, and it was the perfect recommendation for me. Just quoting a few. He sent me a very nice email. I'm just quoting a few parts. Andreas wrote, "You said you loved fiction like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, and were looking forward to get yourself into sci-fi a little more, but not too deeply. So that was key. I think I have the perfect recommendation for you, and that's Pierce Brown's Red Rising books. So this is a
whole series.
It's a whole series. There's I think 3 books already out, and one of the fourth one is coming out in 2019. What convinced me, besides the fact that he said it's like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and sci-fi, but just not too deeply, he wrote that even though I only have time to read while commuting, I read the series of 3 available books very quickly. So a busy person who got hooked on these books, despite the fact that he has a job and cannot read during the commute. Harry Potter style mixed with sci-fi. So I started reading and I was hooked in the first chapter. Basically, it's the story of this.
It looks like there's 5 books.
Oh, 5? Okay. So
there's 4 out now. The 5th comes out in July.
The idea would be that it's set in the distant future. I think the year 2700 or something. Space has been colonized and Earth has fallen to these colonies. There's a group of people leading this new space society called the Society, and the Society has created various colonies on Mars and the Moon and I think Mercury even. And there's a hierarchy to the Society, and the protagonist is a slave. Basically all the people are organized by colors, so there's the reds and the blues and the greens, and the leading races are the golds. And this is the story of this. I don't want to spoil it, but this is basically in the first, not even the first half of the book, this protagonist who is setting up to overthrow the Society. That would be the basic story. And what I love about this book is that it's not, when I say Harry Potter style, it's not that it's got magic. Of course, we have crazy futuristic technology and all kinds of things that don't exist. But it's the pace of the narration and the setting. So you have a young teenager as the main character, and then you have a school setting. So you get to know the protagonist in a school environment with schoolmates and relationships between people who go to this school. It's very, very easy to read, very well done, and I keep thinking about the book when I'm not reading the book. All I want to do is read this book. So I've stopped watching my TV shows. I've stopped playing video games because I just want to finish the first book. And I cannot wait to see how it ends. And I want to start on the second one. And I want to specify how I hadn't felt this way in years. Like, basically since the last Harry Potter book came out. So thank you, Andras. Excellent recommendation.
Sounds like it's primed to be turned into a TV show or a movie.
I think the rights to the movie were actually sold to Sony a few years ago, and the movie is still in the works. Maybe that's what Wikipedia says, at least.
The author, Pierce Brown, is very handsome too.
And very young.
On his Amazon page.
Yep.
So if that is of concern to you, you now know that it was written by a handsome individual. That is my official input on your book. I find the author handsome.
All right.
Moving on.
I ordered a copy. I put it on my Kindle, so I'm going to check that out. This week marks the 9th birthday of the iPad, 9 years since that keynote. We're not going to get into that today because 9 years is a silly year to do that. We'll do that next year if we want. But I do want to point people to Connected episode 24, where we walked through that keynote. That was back in 2015. Solid episode. I listened to part of it the other day, and I think it holds up. So that keynote is really pretty outstanding. It's not iPhone level. I don't think anything is iPhone level, but it's definitely got its own feeling that I think is good. And I had put that in the show notes, and then I went to Twitter, and Nilay Patel, the editor-in-chief of The Verge, tweeted that 9 years ago today, I published the first images of an iPad before it was ever announced. And I had totally forgotten about this.
But I remember those images, though.
I remember when it happened, and I remembered how months later, everybody figured out how in the same pictures there was a hidden iPhone 4.
Yep.
And we didn't notice at the time, but it was there along with the first iPad. It was right there in a corner of the pictures.
Mm-hmm. Totally nailed it, including running the Maps application. Like, this was a huge leak. And I remember people just freaking out. So it was fun to...
Oh, yeah, look at that iPhone. Ha! That's hilarious. It's just sitting there on the table.
Yeah, just plugged right
brilliant.
in.
God, that iPhone 4 had a wild life.
It sure did. All right, tiny topic number 2.
The most important thing. This is the most important thing we're talking about today.
Yeah,
yes.
We could just end the show after this.
This should be a large topic, not a tiny topic. This is a massive topic. This is a sizable topic, I would say.
So Apple this morning announced that Apple Music subscribers can now stream from Apple Music on flights with American Airlines that are equipped with Wi-Fi. So I'm sure a lot of people are familiar, but if you're not, a lot of airplanes have wireless, but you got to pay for it, right? So it's like whatever it is, $10, and you get to use wireless on the flight. I, for one, am usually a sucker for this because usually I have work to do. Not everyone wants to pay for it or can afford it, but it's there as an option for some. And now you can use that, and basically Apple Music is free over that wireless. If you sign up while you're on an airplane, which is just like, let's just pause for a second. I don't know who is like subscribing to new music services while on an airplane. Like, because it was free, you decided to sign up. I do
it all the time. I go on flights just to sign up for free stuff. I
tried Tidal last time I went to Chicago, but I'm just kidding. This is where if Mike was editing, there'd be cricket sounds, but I'm not going to do that to myself.
No, you should. If you were an impartial editor, you would.
Yep. But he's not.
My integrity's been called into question.
It's about ethics in podcast editing, Stephen. Do what you will, the listeners will judge. I'm just saying.
The most amazing part of this press release, though, is the artwork. This is drawn like this is how you get out of the airplane if it's on fire artwork that you are supposed to read, but no one does.
It's so good.
It's amazing.
This guy, he's choosing his music, and then he's enjoying it more than anybody's ever enjoyed music on an airplane. It's so good. Out of context, they're so good. We had a back and forth today between all of us on Twitter. It was hilarious. I will put a link in there. I thought it was hilarious, where we just were assuming what that guy was listening to, and this is why it has completely taken over our brains today. All I can think about is this guy. I've downloaded the artwork, so I'll have it on my computer forever. It's just, the artwork is really funny. Like, it's just funny, and I also, like I was saying to Stephen earlier, I don't understand why they did it. This is way too much work from an artistic perspective than is required for this press release. In a photo of Apple Music, like any Apple Music image that they have on a hard drive somewhere that they use for any press release would do. It did not require this level of art direction, but I love so much that they bothered to do it because it's hilarious.
My theory is that if you scroll the press release and you go all the way to the bottom, you will see that the press contact for Apple is Brian Bunbury. And my theory is that Brian, in his free time, likes to draw. So what you see, the guy is actually Brian. This is him.
It's a self-portrait. It's like, he really enjoys it.
This is what Brian does on the Apple paid for flights to Chicago or whatever on American Airlines. This is Brian. This is what he does. So thank you, Brian, for the artwork and the excellent press release. Really good job. You should pursue your career as an artist also.
It's so meme-worthy. Like, I love it so much.
It's really good. It's the show art this week. Go look at your podcast player.
I'm honestly considering that we just rebrand the entire show, and it's just all based around this airplane guy.
Brian. His name is Brian.
His name is Brian.
So,
get it right.
We've got a lot more to talk about this week, but first I want to tell you about our first sponsor. And if you have a Mac or an iPad, you're going to want to listen to this one because our friends at Luna Display are saving us so much money and improving our workflow. Because with Luna Display, you don't have to spend a fortune on extra screens for your Mac because you already have an iPad. You can just use that by plugging in a tiny little bit of hardware. Just connect over Wi-Fi or USB and boom, more screen real estate. This means you can have multiple screens without having to go out and purchase another one. And for me, like if your desk isn't very big, you don't always have to have it there. You can just have an extra display when you need it. Luna Display is just... it works so well. They recently had an update that made it even faster, which I didn't think was possible. There's already basically no lag, and this update has made it even quicker. And I was, for one, really impressed with the hardware, the little dongle you plug in. You can pick between USB-C or main DisplayPort. Mine is just USB-C. It plugs right in the back of my iMac. It looks great, super tiny. They really did a great job with that packaging. And it's not just me saying this. iMore said that Luna will change your travel workflow. TechCrunch described the visual fidelity as frankly stunning. And Apple Insider said it's the first time a wireless solution for video has impressed them. Believe me when I say you'll be happy with your Luna display. Go to lunadisplay.com, and once you're there, enter the promo code CONNECTED at checkout for 10% off. That's lunadisplay.com and promo code CONNECTED at checkout. You're just going to love this thing. It's handy, it's smart, and it's going to save you money on extra screens. I'm going to give you that URL one more time, lunadisplay.com. Use the promo code CONNECTED. You're going to love it. Our thanks to Luna Display for their support of this show and Relay FM.
So we've got a couple of things that I want to talk about today with the biggest caveats of like they are really complicated and they are still developing stories. But we cannot let this week's episode go by without talking about them. And the first one is the FaceTime issue. So, as a very quick recap, a couple of days ago, this was on Monday, right? I think it was on Monday. That sounds about right. Basically, some news had started to appear in certain outlets, having been picked up from social media and Reddit and places like that it was possible, if you performed a series of steps, to be able to call somebody on FaceTime, and if you added your own number to the phone call quickly, it would consider that the call was failed on the recipient's end, but would open their microphone so you could listen in to them. And if you, again, pressed a series of buttons, I think it's like the volume buttons, you could for somehow turn on their microphone. It's like the weirdest, strangest bug that somehow related in a pretty severe privacy situation. Funnily enough, on Data Privacy Awareness Day, as our good old friend Mr. Cook tweeted, and then like an hour later, this FaceTime bug started to appear. Apple did the best thing they could have done in this situation, was to, on the server side, disable group FaceTime. This is only affected on group FaceTime calls. If it's one-on-one, you can't add somebody to a call, so you can't activate the microphone. And Apple have released a statement to say that they will have a fix out within the coming days to fix this. That doesn't surprise me because honestly, this feels like a very serious bug.
Yes.
That I'm sure is going to take a ton of testing and work to fix. You know, like I see a lot of people being like, this is unacceptable, this amount of time. But I mean, I don't know enough about software development, but I can only assume that a situation like this, you cannot call it completed within a day, because the amount of work it's probably going to take to fix it and test it, because you now have to test it way better than you tested it the first time. But at least Apple was very lucky, I think, that this is just a problem for group FaceTime. Because if it was FaceTime as a whole, I don't know if they could have taken it down so easily. Because this is a communication method that people rely on.
It's not good. I mean, as far as bugs in Apple software in recent history, this, I think, for me, is the worst by far.
So I was thinking about this. Is this worse than the root admin thing?
I want to compare it to that in a minute. So I'm going to put that in the parking lot for a second. But because it enables microphone or camera access without your knowledge, like that to me is beyond anything else Apple has screwed up over the years. And to be from a company that says they take this seriously, it's awful. I mean, I agree with the people who say it's an inexcusable bug, and it's one that they responded quickly. And they're going to get a push out this week. My guess is we'll see a version of iOS maybe even tomorrow to fix that, if not this afternoon. As far as things you can screw up, I can't imagine many things worse than camera and microphone access.
I think this kind of thing couldn't be more embarrassing than it is for Apple, right? Like, of all companies, this is most embarrassing for them. Like, I've seen they put that big banner up, didn't they, during CES? Like, what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. I've been seeing that memed quite a lot over the last couple of days, because that is categorically, in this case, not true. I mean, I even saw today, like, this is the thing, this story is still continuing to develop, but I saw today on Mac Rumors that a lawyer is suing Apple for this because somebody did this to them and heard something about a case that they was working on, right? And so, yeah, so Apple was hit over a lawsuit over FaceTime eavesdropping bug.
Or think about people with, like, domestic abuse situations. Like, there is no good that comes out of a bug like this, right? It is.
No, I mean, like, I even saw someone say, like, what about the president? Right? Like, world leaders that have iPhones, right?
That is the part that has concerned me the most is, besides the actual consequences of this, is the reaction that I've seen from a lot of people on Twitter saying that basically a response along the lines of, so what, I have nothing to hide. And that, to me, is the symptom of, I would call it a disease, actually, that as a society we've been numbed to believe that any kind of privacy invasion is fine as long as we got nothing to hide. And the fact that we accept as inconsequential a problem such as your phone can now listen into your private conversation. Or I got people saying, well, so what, I'm sleeping.
Or so what, I have a HomePod or an Amazon Echo. I saw that one as well, right? I already have microphones around me that can listen at all times.
The fact that you cannot see how, not even problematic doesn't even describe it, how wrong and dangerous it is for all kinds of people, whether you're sleeping or whether you're the president of a country or whether you're a lawyer working on a case. Being able to, the ability for a phone to listen in the background is a problem, is a major problem that shouldn't happen. And just because it happened to Apple and Group FaceTime doesn't mean they are excusable from this. Because just as we get upset at Facebook or Google, we should hold Apple accountable when these things happen to them. And the fact that I've seen these reactions from people who these are the same people that tend to justify anything that Apple does, which I don't think from this point of view, their opinion really counts. But the general sentiment of, I'm fine with the government or with Google or with Facebook or with Apple in this case, invading my privacy because I got nothing to hide. That is what, and I'm not exaggerating here, this is what leads to the downfall of the concept of individual privacy to the eyes of the government or any major organization. It's so wrong, I cannot even describe it.
This isn't even an Apple problem. This is Apple having a hole in their software that enabled somebody else to break into somebody else's privacy, right? Like, this isn't a situation where accidentally a bunch of information got uploaded to Apple servers, but they were able to get rid of it, right? This is like a hole in their software enabled for a period of time, which I don't even think anybody knows how long that period of time could have been, right?
That's the other problem.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume the worst that it's when they shipped this new group FaceTime in iOS, 12.1? So
Yes.
It's been months.
Right. So, look, we all know how the internet works. There are people that have known about this and have been using this for a while, right?
Yeah.
Like someone's
Yeah.
found this, and people have been using this for nefarious purposes, right?
Without
Like,
saying anything
yeah,
about
these
it.
communities exist, right, on the internet, right? Like that is 100% a thing that happens, and it may not have been a lot of people, it may not have been for very long, but I don't know if there can be bugs of this scale that only one person was able to find out, right? Like that, I don't believe that that's the way the internet works. But like the issue is here is it's not that like Apple screwed something up, which meant that it went to Apple. They screwed something up, which meant that any individual could listen into any individual's conversations. Like you were able to open up very easily in very simple, reproducible steps, a direct line of hearing to somebody else's world. That is absolutely unforgivable. I'm very surprised, and I hope that this is rectified, that we've not seen anything in the way of an apology from Apple on this one. I know that they have done stuff like this more recently, but like my only assumption is that they're waiting until they fix it and maybe do some due diligence so they can try and explain what happened. But like this is something that they must address. They cannot leave this. It was like, if I remember correctly, with the High Sierra admin bug, they did actually issue an apology, right? Like they did apologize. And I haven't, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but all I've seen is a statement. Anything coming from Apple right now in regards to statements on this is, we are working on fixing this.
I think so. And that's actually how it worked with the root deal. So this was with, this was in November 2017. And so in High Sierra, basically you could unlock things by just entering username, root, and no password. And that's awful. It's not the privacy invasion thing we're talking about now necessarily, but these two things in my mind.
You still had to be in the physical space of somebody's computer, right? Which adds a different level.
I don't remember if you could do it remotely or not, but
okay.
The thing that I come back to with this is both the root thing and this. You would think, I think, would be relatively simple to find if your QA process worked. It just would, right? Like, how do we all? I mean, if you get a phone call and you don't want it, you hit the sleep wake button to send it to voicemail, right? Like, you just hit the volume button down. If that's triggering the camera, like, how did they not find that in QA testing? I don't understand, but something seems like fundamentally broken in Apple's process with this to allow bugs like this out the door. It's, and the thing that really grates me about this is they delayed group FaceTime because it was buggy. Remember, we tried it in the beta and like your phone just exploded. It like didn't work. And they said, hey, we're going to hold it back. We're going to make it work. We've used it since then. 3 of us used it on a call last week. It worked well. But if you already delayed it because you had QA issues and then something like this comes out, like whatever QA process you have, whatever QA team you have is not working. They're not doing their job. The process isn't doing what it's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm. From the other end of the story, how this bug was reported to Apple, I find the entire process. So there was an article on The Verge that detailed the timeline of how this 14-year-old kid discovered the bug, and his mother, who's a lawyer, I think in Arizona, they started contacting Apple. And she as a lawyer actually wrote a formal letter to Apple. They got in touch with the email that Apple advises people to use for discovering security issues. And yes, they wanted to participate in the bug bounty program that Apple has to reward people who discover important security issues. But I've seen people make jokes about that, and honestly, I think it's fine. Every company has these programs, and people are allowed to take advantage of them. The fact is that this person gets in touch with Apple and sends a video and a letter. There are details on how to reproduce this problem, but still
they filed a radar.
So first this person is asked, so a regular citizen with no developer expertise is asked to sign up for a developer account and file a radar. So they actually do that. They file a radar on the bug report website, and the radar is marked as a duplicate, of course, radar being radar, and 2 to 3 days pass and Apple does nothing, and at this point the person goes public with the disclosure of the bug. This is incredible to me. I don't know what you guys think, but this is incredible.
I had some like complicated feelings about this as it was unfolding, but by the time that we got all of the information out, I agree with you that it is unbelievable. Like, because at first it was like there was just the email that was sent to like Apple Product Security, and my thought was like, they must get so many of these every single day, and it's people that are like, I found a bug.
My printer quit working.
Or it's just like, I found a bug, give me money, right? Not, you know what I mean? Like that, I'm sure people find bugs in iOS every day and then try and get money out of it because like whatever. But it was once I had seen everything that ended up coming out via like, it was the reporting, I think a lot by John Mayer of, I'm not sure where he was publishing this. Right, but like, was that right? Like, there's a guy called John Mayer who seemed to be having a lot of conversations with people about this.
Yes,
I think he's linked a lot, but yeah, I'm not sure where it was actually being published other than on his Twitter account. But his tweets.
The Verge wrote
everywhere.
an article linking to his tweets also.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I'm not sure where, like, how and where he got in touch with this. Like, I'm not familiar with the guy, but like, he seemed to be doing a lot of the initial reporting. But like, as it was starting to unfold, like, I don't understand how something wasn't done about this. Like, at the point that it got to Radar. At the point that it was then marked as a duplicate, which means someone's looked at it, like, I don't understand how something wasn't done more quickly. It just seems so peculiar to me. Like, and I'm not gonna attempt to say that like I understand how these things run, right? Or like, for all we know, they were working on it and just didn't want to publish anything about it because they didn't want to like get it around. Like, I don't know. But what I do know is that this whole process appears from the outside to be fundamentally flawed.
Yeah. And also, something that I've seen on Twitter a lot is a common type of comment on this story of, well, there are people working at Apple and I sympathize with people because people can screw things up sometimes. And that to me is just a pretty way to defend Apple, in the sense that yes, even doctors who have incredibly complex surgeries are people and then can screw it up sometimes. But the purpose of being a professional is to have responsibility and to be held accountable for your work. And to say, oh, well, people screw it up sometimes. Would you say that to a doctor who was supposed to save your life, but he didn't? Would you say that to the rocket scientist that was supposed to fly a rocket, but she screwed it up and the rocket exploded? Would you share that type of comment? Or, well, I understand it's people and people screw. Like, that doesn't mean anything. That comment does nothing to this discussion. So it's a screw up, and hopefully it's a lesson that Apple can learn from.
With things like this, if you are a company that purports themselves to be better than everybody else, you
Yes.
open yourself up to more scrutiny. Like, if what you are saying is, if you're like one of your core tenets for your brand is privacy and security, and you have a privacy and security flaw, it's worse for you because you've already told me that you are going to be better at this than everybody else. You have told me that by buying your product, I am more secure. So when you have a security issue, it's worse for you than it is for the other people because you've told me, they're not telling me, right? Like, Company X is not saying to me, like, buy this phone because then you're secure. You told me that as a selling point of your product. So when you have a problem, it is worse.
It's like when I promised people I was going to talk about the iPad Pro and then I didn't.
Exactly. And then everyone's like, well, we made an agreement here where you were going to tell me about the iPad Pro, but you didn't do it and you let everybody down.
Yeah.
But then you ended up living up to it and you issued your apology.
Yeah, I did. Mm-hmm.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Drafts, where text starts. When an idea strikes, you don't want to write it down later. You want to write it down right now. Because if you're like me, it could be gone in seconds. You got to capture it while it's here. Whether it's an idea for a new podcast or a movie you've been meaning to watch or something you just need to pick up from the store, when it comes to notes, now is always better. Draft launches ready to type, and it's the quickest way to jot down ideas or notes. Dictate notes. The dictation of Drafts is so good. And you can draft messages or social media posts right there, so you can think about it, spend your time on it, and then send it off to where it needs to go. And Drafts has a super configurable editing environment, making it a friendly, trusted place to edit and update any text on your iOS devices, with loads of fonts and themes to choose from. Once you capture that text, powerful actions and automation tools let you do almost anything with it. You can send it as an email or a message, post it to Twitter, you can save it as a file to Dropbox, iCloud, Evernote, and more. So we said automation, so that means it is time to hear from Federico Viticci.
Yes. So I love Drafts, but not for the reason that the tagline explains. The tagline is where text starts. I love Drafts because it can do that, and it's an excellent app to do that. But Drafts for me is the dream of the fully customizable text editor. So the idea that you have a place where you can make text looks the way that you want to by changing the appearance of the text editor. You can have actions that are exactly what you need, and you can categorize them in groups, and you can modify your workspace to be an actual workspace. You can create multiple workspaces, and you can customize what actions are loaded for each workspace. You can use tags to organize your documents, and you can even set defaults for what are the action groups that I want to load by default when this workspace appears. And then there's JavaScript. You can create all kinds of actions that combine visual steps, sort of like shortcuts, with code. And this was, it saved me so much time last summer when I was working on my iOS 12 review. The ability to create actions that use JavaScript to sort of create little programs that run inside of Drafts. I was able to create a little script that scanned my entire review for certain placeholders, and those placeholders became reminders. And those reminders in the actual Apple Reminders app had a link in their notes field, and when I tapped the link, I was taken back to Drafts to the exact point of the document where the placeholder was included.
Nice.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible what you can do. There's all kinds of things you can experiment with. There's another great part is the community behind Drafts. Everybody's just super nice and super into like the idea of letting you understand Drafts and sharing scripts and actions with you. It's all like from the text starts idea to the text editor and the customization to the community. Everything is just awesome, and it's Drafts. Whenever I need to do something with text that I cannot do anywhere else, this is what I use. So super recommended.
Try Drafts in your dock for a week right now for free. Just go to getdrafts.com. If you don't have a note system you're super happy with, you're basically missing your second brain. So get it sorted now. Go to getdrafts.com. Our thanks to Draft for their support of this show and Relay FM. TechCrunch on Tuesday reported that Facebook, Josh Constantine at TechCrunch, Facebook was secretly paying people to install what they called Facebook Research VPN. So we got to back up a second. We remember last year, Apple removed Facebook's Onavo. How do we want to say this?
I say Onavo, but I don't know.
I'm going to go with that.
Onavo.
Onavo.
Sounds Italian enough.
Oh no, Ovo.
Vo.
This was a VPN by Facebook, and they were using it because if you have VPN, the VPN provider, if they're so inclined, like they could potentially see what you're doing. And Apple said you can't do that, and they removed it. It was removed in August. Facebook decided that wasn't acceptable, and they were allowing people to sideload it through what is called enterprise certificate, enterprise developer program certificate. So this is a tool that you can use if you're a developer to run internal apps on devices. So, for instance, say that Federico was writing a espresso tutorial app for the iPhone and iPad, and he wanted us to test it. Instead of dealing with TestFlight, you could, if you were an enterprise developer, which obviously you would be,
yes,
you can distribute this. So there's a profile that the user downloads on their phone, And that profile allows them to install this application. And then from there, it's just an app running on the phone. So it's a way to get around Apple's systems. And it is designed for people who are testing apps at scale to say, hey, we have 1,000 employees. Let's let them all use this new build of whatever and see if they find any bugs. Maybe Apple should have done this with Group FaceTime. But you can see how this is used, right? So it's built with the intention for testing purposes. A lot of big companies, like it's come out with Facebook, use it for all sorts of internal things. Facebook, we've all been to their campus. It's like Disneyland. You can order a burrito on your burrito app, Facebook burrito app, and it shows up at your office or whatever. Where they broke the rules is that they were using this with members of the public to install this application. And this application had already been banned from Apple, from the App Store, but they still wanted people to use it. So this Facebook Research app was part of a larger project called Project Atlas, which is a pretty good code name for taking everyone's data. Like, hats off to you for picking a good code name, Facebook. This was a VPN, and to track and look at data plan usage. But part of the overall project was like, hey, could you maybe upload what you've ordered from Amazon? And basically Facebook was just using this program. This VPN app was part of the program to gather ungodly amounts of data on these users. And some of these users were given $20 a month in gift cards. So I guess that's the price of privacy for some people, but clearly bad. So this comes out in TechCrunch, and it's safe to say, at least our corner of the internet just burned to the ground, right? People are furious, and people are calling on Apple to respond to this. And there are people, and I will count myself in this group, that think Apple gives big companies more leniency than small companies. If this were an indie developer, they would be banned from the App Store forever. No questions asked. You are done. Instead, what Apple has done here is they have revoked this certificate, which not only breaks this application, but breaks all of Facebook's internal applications. There's reporting. There was actually while we have been recording the show, Facebook had a statement to Recode basically saying all of our internal apps are broken. We're trying to negotiate with Apple to get this turned back on. So that's the story. That's kind of where we are today. We're recording this. This could be different in a matter of hours. But while we've been recording, it's also broken that Google has sort of a similar project running using their enterprise certificate. So Facebook is not the only one to break this rule. Google seems to be doing it too. That story got published as I'm speaking right now, 7 minutes ago. So that is a very new part of this. So I feel like that's the news, but I want to see what you guys think of it. What do you think of Apple's response to it? And what is the way forward for these two, now three companies to get along?
I think ultimately Apple has done the best thing that they could given the situation that they had at hand. It would be really great if they found a way to maybe punish Facebook more, but you've got to assume that they're trying to not then upset all of Apple's own users, right?
So let's be specific. What does punish Facebook more mean? Does it mean pulling Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram from the App Store?
Sure. I mean, that's what they would do to a smaller developer in a situation like this, right? That they would be like, you're done now, goodbye. But the problem is, in that situation, it hurts more people than just Facebook. And I think that's the line you have to walk, right? There are a lot of things that Apple can also do behind the scenes, I guess, to make things more difficult for Facebook, right? Like promotion and all that kind of stuff. That's all going to be, I guess, we're going to go back to the drawing board for a lot of those types of things, right? And PR for new app launches and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. They have done, I think what they have done is very interesting in that they have made things exceedingly difficult for Facebook as a company, right? What they have done is make things very, very complicated and very, very uncomfortable for Facebook and its employees without harming the users of the apps. And for good or bad, right? So here's the thing. If they did this, I would be super mad that I wouldn't be able to use Instagram. I would be, right? Me. I want to use Instagram. And if they were like, nope, Facebook, you're gone and all your apps are gone, I would be upset about that, right? Like, I want to be real about this.
It'd be a huge blow to their entire ecosystem.
Yes. And like, so they've got to kind of like weigh up what they can weigh up, is my opinion.
20 minutes ago, Facebook confirmed to Bloomberg that all of its employee-only internal apps are offline. They are trying to negotiate with Apple right now. So, my thoughts on this. I have said this before. I want to go on the record with this. I don't care if you disagree with me. You don't need to tell me. My personal belief is that Facebook is ruining modern society. It is the prime cause of it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. You can Google it and see what it's all about. It is ruining all kinds of people and their thoughts and their self-esteem and love for an idea of privacy. I wish that Apple did more. I realize how unrealistic that is to think that Apple is suddenly gonna pull Facebook from the App Store or Instagram or WhatsApp or Messenger. This feels like the right approach of going behind the scenes to hurt them without actually causing trouble to the users. The users have done nothing wrong here. People like my mom or my girlfriend or Mike and I or Steven, we've done nothing wrong. We didn't participate in this program. And to remove Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp from the App Store would be unrealistic, would be maybe too much right now. But to hurt Facebook in this way from a technical standpoint is the right approach. Now, is Apple gonna negotiate with Facebook? Isn't an apology gonna be enough? Are things gonna go back to normal by tomorrow? Maybe, because ultimately these are corporations. Are corporations, they can work behind the scenes. They can, have a handshake and everything is gonna be fine. It's possible that things will be back to normal in a couple of days' time. I think overall, as beyond the App Store, beyond Apple, beyond the details of this latest screw up from Facebook, I am optimistic that we are on a path to get rid of Facebook from our lives. It's gonna take years, but I think people are just fed up. It's one story after the other, and it's too much. So,
and it's unbelievable. Like it's not even, I don't even think it's desensitizing. Like, I think a lot of people can make the argument that, like, oh, there's so many things, it's desensitizing. But it's so many different things. It's just unbelievable.
So
what they do. I would say that by and large, when I've heard you say this kind of stuff in the past, and like many of our friends, I've kind of been a bit like, I don't know. But I think over the last couple of weeks, especially, I've really started to turn a corner on what I think about Facebook as a company. I feel like I've had enough personally too. Like, I can really see how terrible they are. Like, I feel like that like I am becoming very aware of it. Like, there is just, it's unbelievable. Like, it is unbelievable that there are people consciously making these decisions about what they want to do with the data of their users and the way they want to treat them.
So are you going to remove your account?
Probably. I mean, I don't even use Facebook. I mean, Facebook proper, right? Facebook Prime. Yeah. I don't use it. And I haven't used it for years. My account just sits there, and it's for like dealing with events that my family invite me to, effectively.
Yes.
Like, that's,
yes.
I don't feed Facebook with anything, and I don't access it. But I am an Instagram user and I am a WhatsApp user. And I have no desire to remove either of those services from my life. Like, I'm being honest, right? Like, this goes back to the thing of like, well, I don't think that those two decisions have to be the same. Of like, I don't like this company, I don't like what it's doing. Then point two is, then do I harm my own life because of it? Because Instagram brings me happiness in my life, and WhatsApp is required for me to be able to communicate with some of my family members. So, like, what am I going to do? Like, what is my path here? Like, do I feel like I need to make a personal stand for the sake of everybody? No, I don't think I need to do that. I can tell you what I think about it right now, and then you can decide to make your own point on it. I don't think that Mike Hurley leaving Facebook is going to really affect the needle that much.
No.
So yeah, I probably will get rid of my Facebook account when I get around to bothering to do it. But the point is, I'm not going to remove my Instagram account, and I'm not going to remove my WhatsApp account. Like, I'm not going to do those things.
What I believe should happen is that the entire board of Facebook should be replaced, and Facebook itself should be heavily regulated in every country where it operates, because it's not just like it is kind of generic to say Facebook is ruining society. I do believe that by indulging in the sweet lie that is that in democracy every opinion counts, no matter the degree of truth that each opinion has. Facebook has found a system to monetize spreading lies and alternative facts, some people would call them, and turning the minds of teenagers and people over 60 years old, all kinds of people, to believe that certain things that are objectively not true are actually true, but the system doesn't want to tell you, and therefore Facebook is the truth, because only Facebook can show you those facts, from vaccines to global warming to all kinds of modern truth accepted by average people of average intelligence. Facebook has found the system to monetize the spreading of these lies, and for this reason alone, it should be heavily regulated, because it's a system largely designed to deceive people for their own gain. And I cannot believe that, there's rumors of, for example, the Italian government looking to tighten the screws on Facebook, for example, and Google for how they present news and quote-unquote news. I honestly believe that I honestly hope that 2019 is the year that this happens, because this is just too much. This is too much.
I am personally of the belief that in general, like large companies don't necessarily have a requirement for heavy regulation, but I feel like it gets to a certain point where you're not allowed to continue, right? And I feel like Facebook has passed that point now. Right, where like I don't necessarily believe that just because a company is large that it has then walked itself into requirement of heavy regulation from the world's governments, but you only are allowed so many like mess ups, right? Like you and this is not even mistakes. Mistakes is one thing, right? Like this thing that Apple has found themselves in, right? Like, what most likely happened is they just didn't test it well enough. But a lot of this Facebook stuff, including especially this VPN project that they've been going on, was like they weren't trying to do anything other than get data from people that they could use in different ways, right?
Yeah, it was an active decision to build this.
Yes. So like that is when you start to lose your ability to run yourself, is when you can't be trusted. And they can't be trusted at this point. So like, yeah, I think that they should have to answer to governments, which they currently are choosing not to. Like, Facebook are doing absolutely everything they can to ignore the government in my country. Like, the UK government has requested the presence of Mark Zuckerberg on multiple occasions now, and he will not come. They keep sending other people, and I think that is honestly ridiculous, right? That like the government of a country in which you operate in requires your CEO to come and talk to them about the things that his company has been doing, and he just decides not to show up. Like I think that nothing exemplifies the way that this man thinks about the world than something like that.
Yeah, it's so complicated. Sitting here, hearing y'all talk about it. So I left Facebook years ago, and I actually just spoke to y'all last week about it, how I had a situation catching up with some old friends who I hadn't seen in years, and like just having the realization, like, I don't know what's going on in everyone's life, because in my social circle, at least, Facebook is still sort of the currency. It's where people share things. And I expressed to y'all, like, sort of like this feeling of, I kind of don't know what's going on with some people because I'm not there, and maybe I should revisit that. I can tell you this has cured me of that feeling, 100%. But I do use WhatsApp and I use Instagram, and like you, Mike, WhatsApp is critical for communicating with some people in my life, and Instagram is something that I just enjoy. And I don't know what it would take for me to leave those. The rumor of them combining the messaging may be enough, honestly, but clearly, I think anyone could look at this with any sense and realize that Facebook, the way that it is structured and the way that it operates, cannot continue. And Zuckerberg is basically invincible. But something you said that really I thought about for a second was we cover this on Download a lot, but Facebook and Google and Twitter, these CEOs have all spent time in front of Congress here in the United States, and every single time the questions are laughable, right? Like a congressman asked Mark Zuckerberg how Facebook makes money, and his answer was, "Sir, we run ads." Like, until we have leaders in all three of our countries and beyond who understand this stuff and who can talk about it intelligently, it's never going to change. I don't have the hope that you have, Federico, that it's going to fade, because who can do it? Governments can do it, but governments don't understand it. And that's, I think, something that I want to consider more and more moving forward. Like, how do we, as societies, arm ourselves better to deal with these sorts of companies?
My instant reaction to this is not a good one, which is just like, God, I don't think we can.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, feeling defeated in the like, who has the power to bring Facebook on? Only governments. That's it, right? Like no one else can do it. So
maybe it's just something that we gotta learn to live with. Like, some people smoke, for example, and it's just something that exists.
And some people have Facebook accounts.
Some people use Facebook and believe what's on Facebook.
What if you, like, in the future, you go to a bar and, like, there's a sign, it's like, you cannot use Facebook in here. You have to go outside in the cold. Like,
that is an excellent idea for a bar, actually.
I would go to that bar.
You want to invest?
Let's do it. We're gonna open. Okay. We're gonna open a bar.
What's the name?
Oh man, I don't know. IRL. That'll be that's the code name. That's the project code name, at least.
Okay.
Is that it? I don't want to talk about this anymore. This is all depressing and upsetting.
It's so depressing. Yeah. Like, I'm genuinely sorry that we have had to have this conversation.
The downfall of society is not a fun topic, turns out.
No, like, because I'll just say, like, as somebody who enjoys listening to podcasts, we have presented to you an episode which you cannot enjoy. So I apologize for that, because that's not the type of content that I like to make. But I feel like we had to talk about it. I feel like it would have been a disservice to our listeners if we would not have addressed these topics today. And we purposefully make a habit of trying to stay away from stuff where really all we're going to do is just be upset and mad for like an hour. But I feel like that there was no way of avoiding these two things today, because it's companies that have done things that they need to beg for our forgiveness, and I don't know if either of them's even going to bother doing it, but we'll find out, I guess.
This episode of Connected is brought to you by Squarespace. Make your next move with Squarespace. It lets you easily create a website for your next idea with a unique domain, award-winning templates, and more. So maybe you want to create an online store and have a portfolio so people can see your art. Or maybe you just want to be like Federico and write the next amazing blog. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform that lets you do all of that stuff. And the best part is there's nothing to install. There's no like software patches, server administration stuff. No upgrades are needed. You don't have to worry about it because Squarespace has got it covered. They have award-winning 24/7 customer support if you need any help. Their system allows you to quickly and easily grab a unique domain name, and all of those award-winning templates are beautifully designed for you to show off your great ideas. So one thing that Squarespace offers is really nice landing page templates. So I recently updated mine. So my sort of like email address for 512 Pixels and my other stuff is hackit.fm. And I just wanted a simple page there. So someone saw my email address and wanted to see what that was about. They can go there, they see picture of me, a couple paragraphs of what I do, and a link to get in touch. Really simple, and Squarespace made it so easy to put together in just a couple of minutes, and it looks great. Squarespace plans start at just $12 a month, but you can start a trial with no credit card required by going to squarespace.com/connected. And when you decide to sign up, use the offer code CONNECTED to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain and to show your support for this show. Once again, that's squarespace.com/connected and the code CONNECTED to get 10% off your first purchase. I'd like to thank Squarespace for their support. Squarespace, make your next move, make your next website.
It's a nice little website you got going on over there.
Thanks. It's got my cool neon picture for this year on there.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It would be a shame if something were to happen to it.
Well, Squarespace has that covered. I'm not worried about you DDoSing me. Okay, so I want to talk about the iPhone XR a little bit. We'll end with something colorful and fun. So for a while now, Apple has been saying that the iPhone XR is the best-selling iPhone of this generation. So there was an interview on CNET a while back about it, and in their quarterly results call this week, it was mentioned again that the order of sale is XR, XS Max, and then the XS bringing up the lead for new phones, right? So I don't know where the 8 and 7, et cetera, mix into that. But most people who do what we do, podcasts and write about technology for a living, gravitate usually towards the high end. I think most listeners of this show, a large portion of them at least, gravitate towards the high end. And this year that was the XS Max. That's what all three of us bought. That's what a lot of our friends bought. A lot of our friends bought the XS. But it's been sort of rolling around in my head that the XR, if it's the most popular phone, like I feel like it's worth us understanding why that is and really examining the phone as not just something on the website or something we saw in the store, something we lived with for a while. So last week, I embarked on a little experiment, as I want to do sometimes, and I picked up a blue XR, and I put my SIM card in it, moved my stuff to it, because I wanted to understand what this phone offers and how it compares to Apple's other products this year, because the XR is substantially less money, $250 less than the XS, and a whopping $350 less than the XS Max. And I wanted to know what that money bought you and if that money was worth it. So I would love to talk about that. I'd love to answer any questions y'all have about it. I will defend that blue is the best color choice if I need to. So what do you guys want to talk about this?
Don't agree with that. I think coral is clearly the best choice. But I think one of the best things about the XR is that you have that choice. Well, I think my first question to you is, where is this XR now?
It's right here on my desk, next to my XS Max, which is off. There's a lot of iPhones in here.
So, which are you still using the XR?
Yes.
I saw a picture your wife posted on Instagram of you using it, and I thought, I locked that one away in my brain. He's still using it.
Yeah, I've got till Monday for the return policy is up. So this is a purchase a thing as a review unit and then return it or not return it, which I know is like I know like we took some flack for this on Twitter. Like I know that's ridiculous. Like I know that I'm privileged to be able to do this. I'm privileged that my business can afford it, and it's a business. I understand all of that. I understand most people can't do this, but I was able to, and so I really wanted to compare them because most people are just going to buy a single phone, not even every year like we do, and so I felt like I have the opportunity to compare them like in a direct way, like the XR versus the XS Max. And using the iPhone X last year, I can sort of assume some things about the XS that I think are accurate still. So. I am still using it. My SIM card is still in it. I have until Monday to decide what to do.
And where are you leaning on it?
I'm leaning towards keeping it, and I'm leaning towards keeping my SIM card in it because I think that it is like if this was the only iPhone this year, it would be a great phone. Like it is. We can talk about the differences between it and what I think about those differences. But I think especially for the money, and yes, it is too expensive. I wish that it was $699 instead of $749, which would have been the price of the iPhone 8. The pricing right now is like right in between the 8 and the 8 Plus. It's a little too expensive for what it is, but it's a really enjoyable iPhone. There's a lot that I really like about it. And something that honestly surprised me and maybe what pushes me over the edge, and I know this is going to be painful to say because it's the two of you and because Casey Liss is listening, I think the XS Max is too big for me. I think that the XR
That's fine.
is actually the biggest phone I want to carry.
I think it doesn't bother me because the XR is still bigger than the XS.
That's
so
true.
You're still in the big phone club. It's just not the biggest phone club.
The medium phone club.
Which is the best phone club, but you'd be in like a medium phone club, with the smallest one being the worst club to be in.
Who wants to be in a small club? Nobody does.
I don't know, big clubs only.
I really like the XR size. I think the Max is a little too big for me, and I didn't know that. It's one of those things like you can't know that until you go back. And like I unboxed the XR and started using it. It's like, oh boy.
Yeah, it's the sweet spot.
It's
the
Goldilocks. I called it the Goldilocks phone in my review. Like it is the in-betweeny phone.
What is Goldilocks?
Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Do you know this? This Goldilocks is a girl and she's lost in the forest and she goes into a house. And there's,
this is a story.
Porridge.
This is a story.
It's a children's story.
It's like a fairy tale, fable.
What is porridge?
I don't know which one it would be.
It's like oatmeal, but worse.
Gosh. Yes.
Okay.
What's oatmeal?
Okay, you have to remember, I don't share your traditions of the Anglo-Saxon world.
Right. The thing is, though, Federico, like you throw these things in every now and then.
Of what?
The amount of them that, like, I don't get this, or like,
it's true. I don't know what Goldilocks is.
Hang on. I believe you. But the thing is, it's very easy to forget because there are so many that you do know, right? That's why, like, Goldilocks and the idea of Goldilocks has been used in so many cartoons and TV shows that, like, you are probably more aware of it than you would know that you are.
It's a word I've seen before. I just never bothered to search. I
would bet that you have seen some cartoon or TV show that has referenced this directly. That, like, if I was to sit down and really explain it to you, we could find a common ground. But there's like no point.
I have Googled Goldilocks and porridge. Porridge looks horrible. Do people eat this? It's like a poor man's risotto. What is this? Oh my god!
It's not. It's breakfast risotto, is what it is.
Nope. Close.
It's a breakfast
Common W. Goldilocks. Okay, I will read Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Thank you. Sorry.
It's a Star Wars story.
Anyway,
Goldilocks shot first.
I don't know where we're going with this
size. The size is really nice. I really like the size. I do want to talk about the screen because that's. The screen and the camera are the biggest differences. So, yes, having used an OLED phone for over a year, going back to an LCD, it's a little bit of a bummer. Like, the colors aren't as nice. I mean, OLED is just a nicer technology. And yes, the bezels are thicker than on the XS and XS Max. That's going to bother some people. But we have to remember who the XR is for, and who I think it's for is people upgrading from an iPhone 6, 6S, or 7. And if you want a modern iPhone with Face ID and no home button, the XR clearly, according to the numbers, is the most popular option for those sorts of consumers. And those sorts of consumers, it has basically no bezel compared to what they had, and the screen is just more of what they had before. So it is the same pixel density as the iPhone 6, 7, 8, that same density we've had since the Retina iPhone first appeared. It is not the higher density that we've seen on the Plus phones and then on the iPhone 10 and 10s phones. But if you have an iPhone 7 in your pocket now and you like that LCD, you will like the LCD on the iPhone XR because it is the same screen. There is just more of it. It just flows into the corners like it does on the OLED display. So yes, coming from an iPhone 10, it's a little bit of a bummer, but 99.9% of people aren't doing that. It's just people like me who have time on their hands to fiddle with these things. The lack of 3D touch is really interesting. So the iPhone XR ships with haptic touch, which is more or less long press, and you hold there for a second and you get a haptic feedback and then the thing happens. So this is built into Control Center and into the lock screen. So you can do the flashlight and the camera. It's slightly slower than 3D touch, and you do lose things like the app screen or the app home screen shortcut thing. What is that called, Federico? That's a name, right? Like the 3D touch on the app icon. And
quick actions.
quick actions on the home screen.
You
Yes.
don't have those. For me, my personal experience, all I can speak to, I don't miss those. Like I never really used them. And so not having them on the 10R is not a huge loss. Now, if that's really important to your workflow, you're going to have a sad time. What's interesting about getting rid of that, though, is the confusion between 3D Touch and long press is gone. So like, I think we've all had people like, how do you move apps on your screen where you put your thumb down and they wiggle around and then you move them. Oh, I pressed too hard and now I have this menu, and oh, I didn't press hard enough. Like, all that's gone. It's just simpler. So that, for me at least, is not a big deal. I do miss...
That's my deal breaker. 3D Touch is my deal breaker with the iPhone XR.
You really like it?
I use it a lot, and the haptic touch is not good enough in some of my key areas. One is like notification previews, and initially it didn't have them, but then when they added them, it's weird.
Slow.
They've done a bad job of it, because for some reason they haven't implemented it the same way they've done it on the iPad, which doesn't make any sense to me. So on the iPhone with 3D Touch and on the iPad, you just press down and it opens up, and then you can look at it, and then you could, like, without even lifting your finger off the screen, you could just swipe down, head over like a button, and then you could let go and it activates the button, for example, right? Like it's one smooth action. But on the XR, you have to take your finger or thumb off the screen for the notification content to be presented to you in the pop action. And I don't know why they did this. It seems very strange to me, and I think that kind of breaks it for me. It breaks my interaction method. It makes it less nice to use. And I'd use just general peek and pop throughout the iPhone.
That I miss
a lot, and so I did miss this when I was testing a XR, and it is a regression if you are a user of that technology.
It is, and that's the thing for me that I miss the most in the realm of 3D Touch. What I would like to see Apple do is build haptic touch to replace everything with 3D Touch, and then bring it to the iPad. So like the iPhone, whatever model you get, and the iPad all work the same way in this regard. The iPad is not going to get 3D Touch, I don't think. The XR, there's a rumor that the XR2, for lack of a better name, could be getting an OLED display, which maybe brings 3D Touch back, in which case haptic touch is like a weird side story to this phone. But if it's the future, if they're going to get rid of 3D Touch, like has been rumored for a long time, they need to make this work all the same everywhere. And right now it's just pretty messy. So again, something to consider, that if these are features that you want, then like, is the $250 worth it, or are you just going to stay on your old phone for another year and see what happens? Which is probably what most people are going to do looking at Apple sales numbers. The other big thing, and is a bigger thing for me, is the camera. So the rear shooter is a single lens camera on the back. It is the same wide angle lens that's on the XS. Those pictures, the wide angle pictures between my XS Max and XR are effectively identical. I cannot tell a difference. But it lacks the zoom lens, which I used, turns out, I didn't kind of realize it, but actually a fair amount. Now, I don't shoot portrait photos on my phone ever. I'm looking at my iCloud photo library. I have like 6 portrait images in there. I have 42,000 pictures. But if you use portrait mode, the XR can do it. It does it in software. It's not as good, I think, to my eye, as it is on the XS. But it is there. It's using the wide angle, so like the cropping is different. You kind of have to like walk up to somebody, you have to zoom with your feet. But I use the zoom lens in the past, just like taking regular pictures. Or if, for instance, I would need to take a picture of like a business card, I could do like the 2x zoom and punch in closer so the text was bigger when I wanted to enter it into contacts later. That sort of stuff is a bummer. And the zoom lens it might be the deal breaker for me. I haven't made a decision what I'm going to do here. Like, I'm not keeping both phones, I don't think. I got to make a decision. I have a family member who's like in desperate need of an iPhone, so they may get whatever I don't keep. But the not having the zoom lens is, for me at least, coming from the Plus phones, a step back. Now, again, if you were using an iPhone 6, 6S, 7, you weren't in the Plus club. This is a huge camera upgrade, and the zoom lenses wasn't going to be for you anyway. So it's all about putting this phone into context, and that's what I wanted to do with this review. It's what I wanted to do with this 2 weeks, trying it on Apple's return policy of like trying to understand this phone, not from the perspective of a XS buyer, but from the perspective of somebody who would be upgrading. And in that context, the XR to me is a huge hit. It's a great iPhone and one that I think people should be probably even more excited about. It's a lot cheaper. If you look at the monthly upgrade pricing, it's $37. This is in the US for an unlocked phone, 64 gigabytes. The XR is $37.41 a month. The XS is $49.91 a month, and the XS Max is $54.08 a month. So if you're looking at $54 versus $37 over the course of a year or 2 years, or $749, $999, or $1099, like the XR is cheaper by a healthy amount. And I at least think what I've walked away with this is I'm not sure that $250 is worth it. It may, if you want that phone and you can afford it, that's awesome. But if you're coming from an older phone and you don't want to spend a ridiculous $1,000 on an iPhone, I don't think what you get for the XR is like you're leaving a lot. Like what you're leaving on the table, I think is fine for the price. And I think that they've positioned it well. And it's kind of won me over. Like I really like this phone, and I think that it has sort of gotten not the attention it deserves, sort of in like the tech journalism sphere. And so, at least in our corner of that, I want to change that. Like this is a great phone for a lot of people.
I feel like everyone's had really good things to say about it, but just nobody's decided to use it for their own
right.
phone.
Like Joanna Stern's using it. She and John Gruber talked about that on a recent episode of the talk show. And I think she is probably the most prominent person who is using one. People are using it, right? But like, it's so easy to focus on the high end, right? Like when the Mac Pro comes out, that's all I'm going to talk about for a month, and you guys are going to have to like stop me. But when the Mac Mini comes out, we talk about it for a week. People who are into this stuff want to talk about the most powerful, like the high end stuff. But the XR is it's really been eye opening to me how good it is, and I think the price is a touch high, but I think what you get for it, it's reasonable.
Well, but here's the thing, though, right? Like, you are still somebody who wants to have the latest and greatest. And whilst the XR gives you most of that this year, I would be surprised if it kept being the case. So, that, like, it gets all of the technology, bar, like, a few small things.
So that's a really interesting question of what happens this year. So I think there's a world that you just described where the XR stays on the A12 and the XS2 or 11 or whatever gets a new processor, and the XR maybe drops in price but doesn't get updated again. It becomes effectively the new iPhone SE. Remember, the iPhone SE came out, it had the 6S guts when the 6S was still on sale, and then it languished until just a couple of weeks ago when it finally went away. That could be the fate of the XR. It could be that this phone is the modern now, but Apple is going to let it wither on the vine. And that would be sad. And I think it would be a mistake if the new iPhones start at $1,000. If the new iPhones, the iPhone 11 or whatever, the 2019 new iPhone, if that starts at $749, then good riddance, XR. Apple's fixed the price problem. But in a world where the flagship starts at $1,000, I think Apple needs to keep something in this price point updated. And so I am hopeful that we do see a XR2 or whatever it's going to be called, 11R, whatever, that is updated and holds this price point with a new phone, because I think it would be a mistake for Apple, especially in light of their earnings, for the cheapest new phone to be $1,000. Last year we had the 10 at that price point, but we had the 8 at $699 and the 8 Plus at $799. So they've done this now for a couple of years. So I expect that the XR would be updated and hold its price point, unless they really blow things up and the flagships are cheaper, and then the need for this price point goes away because they have it covered elsewhere.
Yeah, I can totally understand why you would be into this, but I don't think you would stick with this in the long term, like the multiple year term.
No, but I mean, like, I can't change who I am. Like, I have a vice of buying a new iPhone every year, but it is a phone that I'd be happy to use for a year. And if say that next year the iPhone 11 is $1,000 and it has 3 lenses, and the iPhone 10R 2, 11R, whatever, is $749 again, and it adds the zoom lens. Like, I don't know what I would do, like, because the zoom lens is the biggest thing for me. And if they added that, like, then like, we have to reevaluate, is the money worth to upgrade? So, like, it's all open-ended at this point. I can only speak of where we are today until these new iPhones come out in September. But today, if you're looking to upgrade, like, I feel solidly that the 10R is the right answer for almost everybody.
Yeah, I would say that I, by and large, came away with that feeling, with the caveat of, unless you're someone like me. But you haven't come away with that. Like,
I haven't.
The Stephen Hackett might be sticking with it, but Mike Hurley knew that he couldn't.
And part of that is because I do it for a living. Part of it is, like, I am sort of interested in, like, what the experience would be for a year using the phone that, like, most of other people I work with aren't using, right? Like, would the things they've taken away to hit the price point bother me long term? You know, in June, July, August, would I still feel this way about this phone? Or, like, I could be, and very well possibly could be, like, in the honeymoon phase, and, like, it's great, it's fun, I like the size a lot, but, like, would I change my mind over time? And for that experiment alone, I may keep it, just to live with something that's not the high end for, you know, the better part of a cycle, to, like, really understand where this phone is, because it's an important, in some ways I think it's the most important iPhone Apple makes this right now, and the most important one they sell. And is 2 weeks a fair time to judge that as, like, a tech commentator? I don't know.
Probably not, but I made my mind up pretty quickly. Like,
sure.
I could see why it was great, but I could also just tell that this isn't.
It's not for you.
It's just
right.
not the thing I want.
Like, and I said this in the review. Like, what I probably should do, like, the middle ground for me is next year, don't do the Max. Do the regular size, like iPhone 10 sized phone, because I do feel like the Max is too big. But if I still want those features, then, like, the 10S slot is probably where I should be, balancing these things all out. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there in September, I guess.
I wonder. So this is my thing. All right, so you're gonna get the 10R now. Will you last until September?
Until September?
Yeah. I wonder. I just wonder. I don't know if I would be willing to say either way.
When have I ever flip-flopped on technology
right?
decisions?
Yeah, right. Whenever.
The thing is that, like, I do feel like with this specific thing that if you do really like the 10R, you might be able to last, because there aren't really that many differences.
Yeah.
Maybe the camera, maybe the 2x camera would, like, really great on you over time, but you just don't know that yet.
That's the thing now.
I feel like that might be the thing, right? Like, we all go somewhere and, like, everyone can get a great picture except you. Right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, because I've been in those situations.
Stephen and his blue phone are left out in the party.
I've been in those situations, but when it was just on the Plus, where, like, I could get a great picture and other people couldn't, because they couldn't get the zoom that they wanted. So yeah, but I don't know. I'm intrigued. I'm interested to see what you do. I bet you keep it. I bet you keep it, and I bet you give your Max away to whoever it is in your family that wants a new phone. But I am not willing to talk with as much certainty to say that you'll keep that 10R all the way to the end of the year.
Yeah, especially if the 11 Max has, like, 3 cameras and a bunch of new camera features.
Oh, I was 100% the moment that the Max gets more features than the other phones, Stephen will come back to the Max Club.
Yeah,
like, without a
you think you're gonna
doubt.
stick with the 11R? I don't think so. So enjoy it while it lasts.
Yeah,
you know, this next 8 months, your pretty colorful phone.
But you're going to put a case on it, though.
He doesn't like the clear one. He wrote so in the review.
I don't like clear cases. I picked up a Spigen case where it is like a rubber bumper with a clear back, and the bumper's matched to the blue. I'll dig up a link for the show notes. It's really nice. I have the phone in that case right now, and I think it will probably be the case that I use with this phone. Again, I don't like clear cases because it shows a bunch of junk in the back. And after a few days, there's like a hair back there that's like really making my eye twitch. But
the speaking case is still going to have that problem.
that's what I'm saying. It's in the speaking case, and it at least the bumper covers all the stuff around the edges. But if stuff gets in the back, then yeah, I don't know why Apple just didn't make a leather case and then just punch holes in it like the 5C case. That would have been fine with me.
Has nobody made just a bumper?
I don't know. The speaking case came recommended actually by Joanna on the talk show. She talked about it, so that's the one I picked up. But we'll see.
I would take a look at. I wonder if Rhino Shield, because Rhino Shield make bumpers for the 10 line, so they might make one for the 10R line, because that's going to give you the protection that you, as a human being, desperately need on your phones because you break them all. But without giving you the issue of having a clear case. When putting a case that covers up the color of these phones, there's at that point, why are you even bothering? Right,
which is why Apple didn't do it. Right, it's why they didn't ship leather cases. It looks like they do make a bumper, by the way. So
you should try it out. The Rhino Shield one, you should try
Maybe
it
I'll
out.
try that out.
I had problems with their initial 10 bumper because it got in the way of me being able to do the gestures, but I've been told by people since that apparently their newer ones are better.
Yeah, well, the Apple clear case and the Spigen both do that. They have a lip all the way at the bottom where the Apple leather and silicone have a cutout. So we'll see. I'll keep you all posted, but right now I really like this blue iPhone.
Oh, this Crash Guard NX is what I'm looking at, and you can do a bunch of colors and stuff. Like you can change the colors of the buttons and stuff like that. Go wild.
Go crazy. I think that does it for this week on Connected. If you want to find links to stuff we talked about, head over to the website, relay.fm/connected/228. While you're there, you can get in touch. You can send us an email, or you can find us on Twitter. You can find Mike there as IMYKE, iMike. Mike hosts a bunch of shows here on Relay FM, so head over to relay.fm/shows. You can find something else with Mike's lovely voice on it. You can find Federico on Twitter at Viticci, Viticci. Federico is the editor-in-chief of MacStories.net, where they publish all sorts of madness. You've shown us some stuff you're working on with some new automation stuff, and it's mind-blowing. I was going to say, stay tuned. You can find me on Twitter at ISMH. You can find my writing at 512pixels.net. And until next week, guys, say goodbye.
Arrivederci.
Cheerio.
Adios.